we are.
Good afternoon. Welcome
Good
back to the
afternoon.
Thad Hollis Show.
That Hollis show, starring Vicki Abraham.
As always. Oh, no, it's definitely not the Thad Hollis Show. It is the show for your audience, for the people who work with clients who are going through separation or divorce, who want to do that as seamlessly as possible, who want to do it with peace in their heart where possible. And it seems that you helped make that possible, Thad Hollis. Here we are on your LinkedIn Live profile for another Wednesday edition of this show that has no name. But each show has its own theme. I just realized this show has no name. Today's theme is why do I still
Divorce.
miss them when I know it wasn't working?
Mm.
Now, as a mediator and divorce coach, is that something you hear much of? Do you hear clients or this concern? Why do I still miss them, even though I know it wasn't working?
Yes, in a nutshell, you hear it a lot. But I try and reassure clients this is a very human experience. We miss things that we're familiar with. It's it's the concept of, when something's familiar, we like the routine. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for us. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily always bad, but it's something that we're now comfortable with because it's something we're used to. And when we get used to things, we become complacent. We get to accept them. We think that they're normal. We think that this is the way it's supposed to be. And when it changes, we go looking for it because it's like, well, it wasn't that bad. It's think of it. I know. Here's a great analogy: quitting smoking. Right?
Tell me more.
Think about it like in a relationship. I mean, we smoke cigarettes. We know they're bad for us. We sit there, they hurt. We cough, we hack, we do all those things. My experience, 40 years of smoking, and when I quit, it felt so good, but I would miss it. And I would want it back again, even though I knew that it wasn't good for me, even though I knew that it wasn't healthy, even though I knew I didn't like the taste, even though I knew it made me cough and I just didn't feel good. I missed it. So now if we draw that analogy to a relationship, we don't decide to end a relationship because things are going really well and everything's going. We end a relationship because it's not going well, because there are impediments, impasses, disagreements, just incompatibilities that make it less than successful. So, of course, think of, I'm missing this individual because, I have a companion. It's someone to come home to, even if you don't want to, it's someone to come home. It's someone you have shared history with. There's the routine of making the bed. It's eating meals. I think the other thing that's really big when I talk to a lot of individuals and couples is that we never acknowledge that there was a dream. And I've said this a number of times. I've never met anybody that on their wedding day said, okay, I'm going to figure out how to get divorced. I'm sure there's someone out there that does that, but I've never met them. And I think, we all have this idea that, you get married in your 20s or 50s or 80s. You get married and you think, well, this is going to be a commitment for a life. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, well, what went wrong? What have I done? How do I get this back? How do I make it? So we're missing the routine, the comfort of having a companion, and also the dream of what might have been, rather than what our realities are. So a lot of what gets mixed up into why do I still miss them when I know it wasn't working is all of these things. It's not one factor. It's a combination of things that, oh yeah, they used to do that so cute. Or, I missed that. Even if it really annoyed you at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is two things. I'm hearing that there's old habits and familiarities that we're missing from that person that are distinctive to our partner.
mhm,
And then
mhm.
there's also the the dream of what the relationship might have been that you're missing, the
Yeah,
possibilities that you're missing. So I guess grief is something that needs to come into this conversation, because that's what missing is, isn't it? That we're feeling grief
partially.
about the loss of a relationship.
And grief happens not in a sequence, and it happens on multiple layers at the same time. It's thinking this through. I mean, you have a partner that snores, you get used to that sound, right? Even though it's not compatible, and you know that it's almost there. There are the little tricks of the mind that says, "Oh, well, that's so familiar. I wish I could go back to that." It's sort of akin to a diabetic wanting to eat lots of sugar, knowing that it's bad for you, but it feels so good, and then the aftermath is it isn't. This is where I see couples reconcile. They'll attempt a reconciliation because they miss the familiarity, they miss the common history, they miss the stories that they share. Right? And so, that's where the bond lies. And it's like, oh no, how am I ever gonna? I'm never gonna get that back. I'm never gonna have that time with that person again. And it's something I see with people who've been together 5 years. It's something I see with people who've been together for 40 years. I've got a couple right now. I'm actually an individual, but I'm trying to work with her and help. And it's a 40-year relationship that's ending. I've got another one that's coming up as a mediation. It's a 35-year marriage. It said, we're done. And part
That's a
of
lot of years to miss, that's
that's
tough.
a
I
lot
think
of story.
I can only
That's a,
imagine that the longer the relationship, the more you might likely miss the relationship, even if you're not missing the person themselves.
you're missing the familiarity. You're missing the comfort. You're missing a companion. I think, we're human. We don't do loneliness. I mean, we can talk about, alone is not loneliness,
Mm,
and that's where we get the separation. And it's that loneliness that I think is the most desperate of acts that we want to correct, you know?
mm,
Whereas helping my client when we're talking about things is the difference between being alone and, sort of a friend of mine summed this up for me a long, long time ago and called it being all one. He said, you're complete as just as you are, that there's nothing imperfect about you, that the flaws are your flaws, but those are it. So, it's that Japanese art of using gold to repair cups and things, where, that which was broken is now even more perfect in its healing.
mm.
So, but in loneliness, there's the sense of fear, abject despair, and depression can follow. And it's that sense of I don't want to be in that. So maybe if I go back to who I know and it'll be okay again. Which is why you see so many couples do reconcile, why you see so many relationships will attempt several times, even if they both admit that it's just not working, that there's incompatibilities, but they want to try it because the fear of loneliness, the fear of I will never find someone again, the fear that I can't cope financially on my own. I need them so I can be successful, or I can survive. It's, I will have no friends because we share, our friends are our mutual friends. All these things start to pile into, that's why I miss them, because if I leave, I'm going to lose all of that. Or, now that I've left, I have none of these things. And while it only has partial truths, it's not absolute truths. And that's
And I
where we get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you've raised that. And I think, as a coach, I know that you are very future focused in how you work with your clients and help them to identify what a new and different life looks like for them on their terms,
Yeah.
whilst also quite likely still dealing with grief. But I think this is really the point where we need to say, yeah, the question is, why do I still miss them? But is that the question we could be asking ourselves? Or is there a better quality question we can ask about
Mm.
this situation? Because the
It's
why do I still miss them holds us in the past. What's a better quality question that will get us into a life that is really serving us? And I say us being, both parties who it's at some point there's recognition that life continues and you must move on, and you can do that intentionally on your own terms, or you can let life move you on.
and here's the rub. Life will move you or you will move, but life will go on. It's that analogy I just love of being, you know, the rock in the stream or the leaf on the stream. Either way, the stream's going to get you to the sea, right? And you're going to be broken down into particles, but you're going to combine with the sea at some point. You can choose to go with it, or you can choose to resist it. And resistance will lead to the depression, the anger, the frustration, the sense of loss, the loneliness. And it's not about this is a good thing and a bad thing. It is just a thing. So it is imaginal life in the future. Because once a relationship's over, trying to get it back together again as it was is akin to the Japanese art of recreating a cup by molding gold into it. It's never it'll still serve the same function, but it's never going to be the same. So it's rather than trying to recreate it and hoping that it's going to work, what would happen if you could actually live your dream? What does that look like? What does it look like to be you, totally whole, all one, standing firmly on your own, grounded into the earth, arms wide, chest expanded, deep breaths? What would that look like? What would that feel like? And what would you do to have that?
I like the quality of those questions.
Yeah.
They are. Those are questions of possibilities and probabilities. And when we can focus our attentions on how we want to design our life, then what we're leaving behind doesn't feel so painful and certainly would feel less lonely. Because I see
Yeah,
loneliness as a void. Whereas when you're designing your life with intention, albeit one small step at a time, then the void is less. It doesn't dominate.
exactly. It's you know, I'll be blunt, I'm not a fan of Winston Churchill, but he did call his depression the black dog. And I always thought it was bigger than that. It was the depression's like that black fog void that it becomes all consuming. And I think isolation, loneliness, depression, they go hand in hand, where we start to feel that loneliness, that absence of everything, where if we can understand that that's called grief. There are clinical help that you can get. There's psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, and if that's happening, if you know someone that's happening, please help them. Mental health is something that is very, very important and needs to be addressed because we don't address it. We will bury it. We will pretend that it's not going on. Oh, it's a natural course when you're separating. Grief is a natural course. Depression and thoughts of suicide aren't. So, so let's just, I just wanted to touch that, but not dwell in that. So when someone's grieving a loss of the relationship, it's okay to grieve what was, but it's never going to be that again. And it is, what do you want your future to look like? What are these things that are going to give you sense of joy and wholeness? So a relationship ends not because it was bad, but because it was not right, not complete. Didn't answer what the two of you needed in that relationship. And there's so many things that it's really individual and trying to be generic and in a general sense. I struggle with that right now, right in this moment, because I'm thinking of so many different scenarios of people I have worked with over decades that they all come flooding in as thoughts, and none of them are going to be um, true to any of the listeners here because everybody has their own journey in this process, but we share the common feelings. I want what was familiar. I want what was comfortable. I want back what I thought was my peace. And so we put on those rose colored glasses and we remember what was good in the relationship. But if it was good, we'd still be in relationship. If it was satisfying the needs of both, we'd still be in relationship. So the journey that I work with clients on is how do you want the relationship to be with yourself? Because you can't have a relationship with anybody else that's going to be satisfying, sustainable, and endurable without a relationship with yourself. And keep in mind that a relationship with another party, another person, isn't it's not going to be, rainbows and unicorns and M&Ms and all those other little raindrops and stuff that you're going to have. It is not a fairy tale. It is a relationship that has its pulls, its downs, its highs, its struggles. It is never going to be perfect because it doesn't exist, because it's made up of two human beings that have their own foibles, not flaws, but imperfections, which make them who they are. And it's when we decide to fit together and work with that, we have a relationship that can be successful, but it is a constant moving, changing force that we work with, we mold with, we grow with. If it remained static, it wouldn't work anymore and the relationship would naturally die. So what we grieve is when something dies, we grieve it because it's gone. And we think back to that perfect honeymoon period when everything was so great and everything was working. Why can't I have that back? Because the relationship changed, it morphed, it grew, it became something different. It started to fit together separately. And if you're not doing that in unison, then think of it as a dance. If you can't dance holding each other and supporting each other, then it's not compatible. Right? And it's not, it's in the metaphoric. Think of it in the metaphoric. So knowing that, learn to dance with the self. Learn to have that own internal romance. We've talked about this before on this format, that it's what is it that gives you a sense of joy, relaxation, peace? Is it reading a book? Is it going for a walk in nature? Is it that bubble bath that you just never had? Is it that quiet moment where you meditate? Is it going to be doing that one thing that you've always been scared of doing? It might be downhill skiing. It might be water skiing. It might be jumping out of an
Karaoke.
airplane. Well, I love
Karaoke is
karaoke.
terrifying.
For some people, for me, it's terrifying to the audience when I sing. But for me, it's like, okay. Um, but that's it, Um, it's where do those things that can give you the sense of I am me, I am whole, I can do this, I got this. Because we think we're incomplete, which is why we want to go back to the relationship. We think if I go back to the relationship because I really miss this person, no, what I'm missing is the feeling I had that I recall with my memory, which is imperfect and flawed anyway, that this was the event that happened and this is how it was. And I'm going to rewrite that story so I can feel comfortable about it. Now I want to go back to it. I remind clients that that's a time and place in memory that can never be recreated because it's gone. The only thing we have is the opportunity now, in this moment, in this present, to create our future. And the future is now, it's gone, and it's now. And we start building towards that dream of who we truly are, because then it doesn't become a dream, it becomes manifesting. And we can manifest the possibilities with help.
Mhm.
And that's where we become all one, because in all one, we're not alone and we have support.
I like the reframe. Yeah. It's all very sage advice, as we have become accustomed to that from you. Sage advice. Um, and what I'm hearing also is that when something feels hard, we tend to go back to what was familiar. What you're describing is that being alone feels hard, or because it's unfamiliar. So I can see in what you're saying that there's a pivot point here, a decision to be made, that you can feel alone. It feels hard. You have two choices. You have a choice to go back to what wasn't hard, although choose your hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want the hard now or the hard forever?
Mm-hmm.
Going back could well be the hard forever if it's a relationship that isn't ready or available to reconcile. So choosing the hard path is often the easy path. It's just unfamiliar, so it feels hard. Once we can frame that as okay, this is new, it's going to feel hard for a little while. And as I sit in it and really discover what I want and need in my life and learn new ways to meet those needs, then that unfamiliar becomes familiar and it actually becomes easy. And now I've
Mm-hmm.
moved on, I've grown, I've changed in the process, I've grown into a different version of me, a possibly more honest, truthful version with myself. I've got to know who I am in the process. They say that growth only happens in the hard zone, in the uncomfortable zone, through
Well,
adversity, through pain,
it's in the stretching. It's
stretching.
in the stretching. It's taking, if we just think of ourselves as a lump of clay, and clay on its own isn't going to do anything until you start to mold it. You have to pull it, you have to play with it, you have to keep it moist, you have to add water to it, you have to support it, you have to put it on a wheel. It needs to be kneaded and cared and tended to make it into something that will then be
Shape
useful.
it. Mm.
Otherwise, it's just a lump of mud.
And ideally, we'll be shaping it ourselves, not having some external factor or
Yeah.
person shape it on our
So
behalf into
imagine,
something that they
yeah.
want versus what we want.
Well, that never works either, because eventually that backfires on everybody and we find out. So it's imagine that we are now our own piece of clay, and we're now molding our own ourselves, because it is the decisions that we make that will then mold us. And those decisions can be future focused, can be based on, what do I want my life to look like? How do I want to be grounded? How am I going to be standing tall? Right? What is it that I really want? Yeah. And I've seen this happen when we ask the questions of the client. It may be, I want to go back to school. I want to finish that degree I never got to. I want to do a creative cooking class. I want to go back and do art again. I miss my art because I put it on the other side. And it always surprises me what people come up with. It comes sometimes to creative writing. It's those things that are expressive, that we've allowed our soul to just hold back because we felt we had to be in another role. And if we can just open up, that happens. We become the very thing that we wished we could have been. If we go back to our younger self and say, what would that be? We now are the manifestors of those dreams that we denied ourselves. And that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah. Wow. What a beautiful place to arrive at. All in 20-minute conversation. Of course, it doesn't happen that quickly, but it is possible. And I love that the message is that there is always hope and that there is always a path. The quality of the choices and decisions we make today determines the quality of the life we live tomorrow. And
Mhm.
with the work that
And
you do with clients, you can help them create their own path towards that when they're
and I
coming
rem-
through separation or divorce.
and I remind clients that we try these things, and if they're not right for now, we adjust, because that's what we can do. We're never stuck to a path that we thought we were in the relationship. We were like this in the relationship because we couldn't budge. The joy about our new beginnings is that we get to try things, experiment, have safe, fun joy, and grow. One day at a time.
Thank you, Thad.
That's how we do it.
Absolutely. And this is the kind of work that you help clients with as a divorce coach. And not just help clients, but help service providers who are working with clients and professionals who are working with clients experiencing separation or divorce or about to, or perhaps have already and they're still adjusting to the new norm, or let's not call it a norm, to their new reality that they're creating for themselves with every quality decision they make.
Yeah.
So if you are watching this or someone has passed this along to you and you feel that a conversation with Thad would be useful, would be something that you'd like to explore, Thad does offer a complimentary initial call just to see what's on your heart, what's on your mind, and what kind of path there might be for you to find the answers you're looking for. So you can reach out to Thad on admin@betteroutcomes.au. Anything else to add, Thad?
I think that pretty well covers it for this week. I think this is a nice place to put a pause and encourage anyone with any questions. Reach out. We can have a complimentary chat. Always happy to help and see what I can do to guide anybody through whatever they're going through and maybe find the assistance that they're looking for. I can make the referral or assist as needed.
Thank you. And I believe we'll be here again next week for another edition
Next time. Yep.
of the show with no name.
The show with no name, starring Vicki Abraham.
Have a wonderful week, everyone. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, everyone.